I walked into my son's backyard and heard a voice cut through the air. Why is she even still alive? My chest burned, but I didn't flinch. I'd lived too many years to be dismissed so easily. I stepped aside, pulled out my phone, and calmly dialed 911 while the laughter went on. They thought it ended there. But that call was only the beginning. Before I share the story, I'd love to know, how are you doing today? I came to Calder's house that Saturday carrying a peach cobbler still warm from my oven. The backyard was strung with lights. Citronella candles flickered on the picnic tables, and the smell of corn on the grill drifted in the late May air. Neighbors and friends clustered around, talking over a playlist of old Southern songs. Children darted between folding chairs, nearly knocking into me, but no one stopped to greet me. I stood there, cobbler in my hands, waiting for Calder to look my way. My son glanced past me, busy pouring drinks, and never once said, "Mom." "Glad you're here." His wife, Milas, laughed loud near the speakers, bracelets flashing, and didn't bother to take the dessert from my arms. Someone muttered, "Just put that somewhere." No one pulled out a chair. No iced tea was offered. They said, "Make yourself at home." But the words were empty. I thought, hospitality without heart is only choreography. I set the cobbler down on a table already crowded with paper plates. Then I lingered near the gate, half in the shadows, listening to the flow of voices. That's when I heard it clear. Sharp, unmistakable. "Miley's," my daughter-in-law said. "Why is she even still alive?" Her laugh cut through the music like glass on stone. A friend gave a short, cruel snort. Calder didn't defend me. He didn't even blink. The music kept rolling, swallowing the moment, but not for me. I held steady. Though my insides shook, I whispered to myself, "I'm alive enough to remember." Down here, we say "bless your heart" when we mean the opposite. I knew exactly what she meant. The party moved on as if nothing had happened. Calder raised his beer high. To family. He called, his eyes sliding past me like I was just another guest. Everyone clinked their glasses. No one invited me into the circle. A teenager brushed my arm, nearly toppling me. But I steadied myself. Shoulders square, chin lifted. I chose a folding chair off to the side, no one offered it, and sat down, watching the performance of togetherness. I told myself, "You can't fix what refuses to admit it's broken." Silence, I thought, is a vote too. Behind the string lights, I caught Milas's voice again, softer this time, but just as pointed. "Once she's out, the deed is clean. We can sell before winter." Another voice answered, "You'll need her signature, or something close enough." Ice rattled in a cup, followed by laughter. I memorized every detail, who stood where, whose hand shook the glass. "Survival has its own discipline," I whispered. "I've signed enough checks to know what signatures can do." A boundary, I reminded myself, is a kindness you give yourself when others won't. I weighed my next step in silence. I thought about statutes on elder exploitation, the difference between a bad family and a criminal scheme. I remembered the day I helped with their down payment, the receipt still tucked in my file cabinet, a witness waiting. I looked at Calder, the boy I once guided across streets, the man who now avoided my gaze. Inwardly, I said, "You raised a son to stand tall, and he chose shadows. Age doesn't soften a spine. It teaches you when to bend and when to lock." I slipped my hand into my purse, fingers curling around the familiar rectangle of my phone. My thumb hovered over 911. I didn't leave. I inhaled slowly, evenly, like a walker starting a steady climb. Around me, the party hummed, but all I heard was my heartbeat. The cobbler sat untouched on the table. I whispered, "This isn't a scene. This is a record. Dignity isn't something you're given. It's something you refuse to surrender." The screen lit up under my thumb, numbers glowing, the line beginning to ring. The line buzzed in my ear as I pressed the phone to my cheek. The laughter in Calder's yard dimmed into a muffled hum, like a radio turned low, when the dispatcher answered. I kept my tone even. "This is Odalis Vera. I'm at my son's house on Henderson Road in Asheville. It's a family gathering. Alcohol is being served. I need to report a statement I just overheard that suggests harm toward me. I spoke slowly. Making sure each word landed, she asked me to repeat what I'd heard. I said it exactly. No embroidery. Why is she even still alive? I gave the names Calder Vera and Melis Corvin. I added that there was mention of selling property tied to my signature. My voice never cracked, and I held the phone low enough for the background chatter to reach her line. This isn't my first rodeo, ma'am. Please document everything, I said, almost like reciting a grocery list. I told myself, when you speak to power, precision becomes armor. She confirmed the address, asked whether weapons were present and whether I needed medical aid. Not now, I said, but I'm 70. With a heart history. That should be noted. I knew paper trails mattered. She advised me to stay visible, not isolated. So I stepped back near the picnic table, my chair empty behind me. I repeated the words slowly, as though dictating to a secretary, and asked for a welfare check with notation of possible elder exploitation. She promised units were on the way. I ended the call. Several guests had noticed. Calder's smile flickered in an attempt to sweep this under the rug. Milas's arms folded tight across her chest. One guest whispered. Another pulled out a phone like it could shield them from accountability. Someone asked if everything was okay. I said clearly, help is on the way. Calder gestured toward the house. Mom, let's step inside. I shook my head. We'll stay where people can see. The speaker sputtered mid-song, leaving a crack of silence on the lawn. Sunlight's the best disinfectant, I reminded myself. And shame withers in open air. Then headlights rolled to the curb. No siren, just a quiet arrival. Officer Thaddeus Mirek stepped out, tall, steady, his eyes sharp behind calm manners. He greeted me by name, confirmed I was the caller, and shifted so his body camera faced the whole group. Tell me again, ma'am, he said. I repeated every word, pointed to the spots where people stood. Calder started toward us with his host's smile, but Mirek lifted a palm. I'll hear your side next, Milas interjected. It was a joke. Mirek's reply was flat. Jokes don't sound like plans to sell before winter. He split the group guests to one side, family to the other. He asked questions, fast but thorough. Who heard what? Who repeated it? A neighbor at the fence leaned closer. Everything okay? Mirek asked for their contact. I gave him my birth date, doctor's name, even the last 4 of my Medicare number. I'm lucid. I said. Calder stumbled through a timeline, contradicted almost immediately by a guest who recalled the phrase about the deed. Mirek wrote elder exploitation concern in his notebook. He told me to stay visible, avoid private rooms, and consider filing no contact if pressure continued. He gave me a case number on a card. I snapped a picture with the cobbler beside it. Officer, I'm steady on my feet. I said, I just won't be pushed. He nodded, then added, if anyone pressures you again tonight, call us. As the patrol car idled by the curb, I felt the weight shift. For the first time, the cobbler in my hands seemed light. That Sunday night, when the house finally fell quiet, I locked both doors and set the chain, the kind of ritual that told my nerves I was still in charge. I cleared the kitchen table beneath the amber glow of a single lamp. One by one, I laid out the fireproof box, folders labeled in my own careful handwriting, and a Ziploc bag of closing receipts from Calder's first mortgage. On the table, I lined up the deed copy, my bank statements, the homeowner's policy, and the cashier's check stub I had kept like a talisman. Among the day's mail was a fat envelope from a healthcare network. I hadn't requested anything from them. Inside was a glossy pamphlet on memory care options. I opened a fresh notebook and began a ledger item. Date, witness. Storage. Paper is cheap. Mistakes aren't. Order is the courage you can hold in your hands. When I pulled the rest of the papers from that envelope, my throat tightened. On top was a pre-admission packet for a local nursing home, my name typed bold across the first page. I scanned down and found a consent to evaluate form, signature and all. It looked like mine at a glance, but the slant of the letters was foreign, and the date wasn't one I ever wrote. Another page claimed a POA on file, referencing a document I never signed. The facility's address was 10 minutes from Calder's driveway. Each page I photographed front and back, timestamp visible, and emailed them to myself under the subject line, unauthorized. Phrases about financial responsibility and transfer of residence jumped out in dark ink. That wasn't paperwork. It was intent. That's not a clerical error. I whispered, that's a setup. Forgery is just violence written in cursive. I picked up my phone. Thumb deliberate as I typed, I am safe, lucid, and documenting. Any talk of placement stops now. I left a voicemail for Calder. Voice steady as stone, I will be reviewing the estate with counsel. No property or account changes are permitted. Case number on file. I ended without apology and saved the recording. Screenshots of the thread went into my archive. This was not a plea. It was notice. A boundary without consequence is just a wish. Monday morning, I sat across from Indira Krellin, her office smelling of lemon oil and toner. Diplomas lined the walls in neat rows. A jar of peppermints sat unopened on her desk. I slid the forged packet, my deed copy, and the mortgage stub across the wood. Indira tapped her pen twice and scanned quickly. This is attempted elder exploitation, she said flatly. Fraud. Possible unlawful placement? She asked for the officer's card, then laid out the steps like marching orders, emergency review of beneficiaries. Revoke any old power of attorney. Freeze shared access. Initiate trust protections. And notify the facility through counsel. She reminded me my 911 call preserved the timeline. With practiced precision, she drafted a cease and desist addressed to Calder and Milas. We'll put it in black and white, she said. The law may move slow, but it weighs a ton. By noon, I had a bank appointment scheduled and a binder checklist from Indira on my phone. No private meetings, no closed doors with either of them again. I set alerts on my accounts and tucked copies of my ID, Medicare card, and the case slip into my purse. At her suggestion, I placed my lockbox photo in a secure cloud folder. I stood at her office window, breathing deep, steady as before the call on Saturday night. Plan your exit before you pack the boxes. Choosing the ground is half the battle. As I stepped onto the sidewalk, my phone rang. A cheerful voice asked to confirm my intake interview for Wednesday. I smiled into the wind, thumb already hovering over the record button. Tuesday evening, I walked up Calder's steps after a short text inviting me to a family check-in. That phrase already made me wary. Inside, the living room had chairs arranged like a panel. Miley sat with a neat stack of papers, a brochure perched on top. Calder leaned forward, elbows on knees, eyes not meeting mine. A guest from Saturday loitered near the doorway, pretending neutrality. Milas started softly. We're worried. Oh, Dallas, we just want what's best. She slid the pamphlet toward me. Memory care options if it walks like a meeting, I said dryly. It's not a chat. Concern can be a mask tailored to fit control. Then came the performance. Milas pulled out a typed incident log, listing things I had supposedly forgotten: a birthday date, a key mislaid, a repeated story. She spoke gently, but each word dripped with accusation. Calder chimed in. Maybe just an evaluation, Mom. No harm in that. He used the voice of reason, but the lock rattled behind the phrase. I sat straighter and began to recite my full address. Last week's meeting time with Indira, the exact amount of the mortgage stub, facts clean and stubborn. The guest nodded along with Milas, as though nods could turn lies into notarizations. Don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining, I said flatly. Facts are stubborn, so are people who don't like them. I didn't raise my voice. Instead, I placed a single sheet on the coffee table, the cease and desist draft Indira prepared. I read one paragraph slowly, steady as a metronome. All communication will be in writing. No evaluations without counsel present. No facility intake of any kind. My tone left no space for negotiation. And, I added, any documents you've already submitted, I expect copies by tomorrow. Calder rubbed his brow, caught between shame and irritation. Milas gave a thin smile. You're overreacting, she said. The guest cleared his throat but stayed silent. I left the paper where it sat, not as a threat, but as a line in the sand. You don't have to yell when the door has hinges. Authority is a whisper backed by paperwork. On the patio. Milas followed me, voice sugared, "This is for your own good." I turned. Cobbler sweetness gone from my tone. Goodness doesn't need forged forms. She tilted her head, claiming I was lonely, vulnerable, too easily influenced. If that's true, I asked, why hide it in paperwork? I never saw Calder stepped out, touched her arm and muttered, "We'll talk later." He still wouldn't look at me. I left through the side gate, counting the lit windows one by one as I passed. A habit of gathering proof, if it's such a favor. Why does it come with handcuffs? Manipulation is mercy with a price tag. Back home. A knock tapped gently at my door. Alara stood there, backpack slung, eyes shining with nervous courage. I recorded part of Saturday. She said it felt wrong. She played it for me, the crisp line. Milas's voice saying "sell before winter." Laughter, clinking ice. My chest steadied. "May I forward this to Indira?" I asked. Alara nodded, hands trembling, but sure. "You did right, kiddo," I said softly. Right is heavier, but it holds. Some rescue ropes arrived disguised as teenagers. I saved the file to drives, emailed Indira with the subject line, "audio corroboration," and texted Officer Marek that new material existed. Tea steamed in my cup as I double-checked locks and lights. Alara texted, "Safe. Once she got home, trust, but get a receipt. Hope is not a plan, but it's a good partner for one." Then my phone buzzed again, an email with attachments labeled "Care Options Draft," CC'd to names I had never seen. Wednesday morning began with a checklist at my kitchen table. I spread out the binder Indira had urged me to prepare, tabs neat as soldier's deed. Bank, healthcare, 911 transcript, exhibits A through D. A yellow sticky on the inside cover reminded me, "Speak slow, ask for receipts." I checked that the audio file had been duplicated, the officer's card photographed, and the cease and desist draft tucked into its sleeve. My driver's license and Medicare card went into my crossbody bag, along with a new notepad and pen that clicked smooth. Before leaving, I texted Indira Bank first. "Courthouse after..." Her reply was short. "I'll meet you on the steps." Measure twice, cut once. I thought, locking the door. A plan isn't courage, but it makes courage easier to hold. At Blue Ridge Credit Union, Zinnia Croft greeted me by name, her handshake brisk. We sat in a glass-walled office where the constant hum of the printer was like a heartbeat. She scanned my license, asked me the security questions I'd set decades ago, then tilted her head, ready to move forward. "Mrs. Vera," I nodded. I requested Calder's removal as an authorized user and demanded his card be canceled. Fraud alerts went on my accounts. External transfers locked until I appeared in person. I set up new two-factor authentication tied only to my phone. Zinnia printed the confirmations with timestamps and slid them across. "Signed Beats," said. "Every day of the week," she remarked. Money talks, but records testify. Through the glass, I saw Calder, flushed, rushing across the lobby. He pressed his palm to the doorframe. "Mom, this is a misunderstanding," he said, trying to smile. "Let's talk, as family." Zinnia stepped out, posture calm. "Only the account holder can approve changes," she told him evenly. His voice lowered, a dangerous softness. "She's confused," he whispered, glancing at my binder. I folded my hands and said clearly, "Please note this. Miss Croft attempt to influence account changes." She nodded and printed a revised signer's list. I signed slowly, each stroke deliberate. Calder stood rooted. Silence stretched between us. "That dog won't hunt," I murmured. Calm is what rage looks like when it's done growing up. By early afternoon, I stood on the granite steps of the Buncombe County Courthouse. Indira met me with a folder compact enough to hide a storm. Inside chambers. We filed for emergency injunctive relief. Exhibits lined up Alara's audio transcript, the nursing home packet, the bank confirmations, and the 911 CAD log. The judge flipped through, his brow tightening. "Why doesn't this signature match your license?" he asked. Indira spoke of statutes against elder exploitation. "We request a temporary restraining order, freeze property transfers, suspend any facility intake." He asked if risk was imminent. I answered, voice steady. They've already started the paperwork? Fair isn't fancy, it's just straight. When the room is quiet, the truth has room to stand up. The gavel came down in ink, not wood. The TRO granted no signatures on my behalf, no facility intake, no financial access for Calder or Miley's. Any power of attorney was suspended until verification. A hearing date set. Milas rose, lips parting, but the judge stopped her cold. This isn't a debate. Indira requested the return of my spare keys and credit cards. The clerk began drafting orders before the words cooled. As we left, a bailiff pressed copies into my hands with a curt nod. You can't unscramble eggs. Justice doesn't cheer. It stamps, files, and takes effect. On the courthouse steps, my phone buzzed. Alara's message lit the screen. Grandma, can I see you tonight? I need to say something in person. I typed one word yes and felt a door creak open in the silence of my chest. Wednesday evening. The porch light carved a small circle against the dark, and Alara sat on the steps with her backpack still on. She twisted the strap in her hands before speaking. I laughed at the party. She whispered, because everyone else did. But I haven't slept right since. She apologized, no excuses, no blaming her age. What does standing up even look like when you've got homework and curfews, she asked. I told her the truth. Testimony is a choice, not a duty. The truth shouldn't cost you your safety. She nodded, eyes wet, and whispered. She'd speak if I needed her. Sorry is good, I told her. Better is different. Forgiveness is a door. Boundaries are the lock you keep. By Friday morning, I sat with Indira in a courthouse anteroom, the hum of fluorescent lights above us. We outlined the witness order, Alara's recording marked as Exhibit E, her presence, optional unless it became essential. Indira rehearsed 3 points coercion, forgery, isolation tactics. I practiced giving short answers, no embroidery. She slid me the red folder, updated will and living trust inside. Keep it tight, keep it true, she said. Preparation is courage you can staple. In the courtroom, the docket was called. Calder stared at the floor. Malis folded her hands like she was in a choir. Indira recapped the TRO, marking the new exhibits. Each stamp of the clerk's hand was a tiny gavel. Milas leaned on her script of concern, but the judge interrupted dates, names, who said so before winner. I kept my eyes on the bench. Milas Corvin, Saturday evening, backyard, overheard by multiple guests. The court-ordered phone silenced. The scrape of paper became the only sound. Facts don't mind the volume knob. A steady voice makes room for the truth to sit down. Then Indira called Alara. My granddaughter walked to the stand, palms shiny with sweat but chin lifted. She confirmed the recording was hers, described where she stood, which adults laughed. The audio filled the room. Why is she even still alive? Followed by, once she's out, the deed is clean. Milas flinched. Calder closed his eyes. A guest in the gallery shifted. Guilty silence falling like a blanket. Alara's voice steadied. I didn't know what to do then. I do now. Right is right, even when it's quiet. Courage sometimes borrows a teenager's voice. Indira lifted the red folder. I testified under oath my updated will and living trust terms. Assets redirected to a women's shelter, not to anyone who attempted exploitation. Executor assigned to a professional fiduciary. The judge asked if I acted freely, with counsel, lucid. Yes. I said, each word firm. Indira requested the orders note the filing to prevent further pressure. The judge stamped twice the sound of a door closing. If you mean it, put it in writing and sign it. Peace is the sound paperwork makes when it clicks into place. The ruling came clear. TRO extended. Facility contact barred. No one allowed to act on my behalf without court approval. The clerk handed me copies, and the bailiff's glance said what his lips didn't. You're clear. In the hallway, Calder started. Mom, I lifted a palm, email only. Malis's smile cut thin as paper. I walked past them. Folder tucked tight. Its weight lighter now. Not today, not like this. Winning quietly still counts as winning. At the courthouse doors, my phone pinged. A headline lit the screen. Elder drama gone viral. My name tagged beneath. By Friday afternoon, my name had grown legs online. A neighborhood Facebook group thread bloomed, my face tucked inside a post that hinted at family drama and concern for an elder's mental state. The HOA email blast wasn't kinder. It carried a screenshot of the backyard, my folding chair sitting by the trash can. The caption twisted it into her favorite quiet spot. I didn't reply. Instead, I gathered URLs, usernames, and timestamps, labeling the note public narrative. Calder typed a vague plea, "Pray for us," while Milas shared a pastel-colored memory care awareness infographic. Hearts and thumbs piled on their side of the screen. I quietly forwarded the links to Indira, dropped copies into the red folder, and whispered to myself, the internet is forever, so make sure your side is too. A lie grows fast because it doesn't carry the weight of proof. I brewed a fresh pot of coffee, opened the TRO copy, and underlined the clauses about misrepresentation. With deliberate hands, I drafted a 3-line public statement. Plain facts only, saved in my drafts but unsent. Instead of sparring on Facebook, I called the precinct and scheduled a supplemental statement for Saturday morning. I texted Thaddeus Mirek, seeing coordinated posts, preserving links. His reply, "Bring them. Keep screenshots." I printed the trash chair photo side by side with an image from my porch camera, proof of where I sat that night. You can't wrestle a pig and stay clean. Silence is not surrender when it's busy making a record. Saturday morning, during my walk, I met the neighbor who'd asked, "Everything okay the night of the 911 call?" She stopped me at the corner, her voice steady. "I heard what I heard," she said, and offered to share her notes with the precinct. She remembered Milas laughing after the cruel line about me being still alive. She scribbled her name and number on a notepad page, and I photographed it for my records. If you saw it, you saw it. I told her. No need to dress it up. Witnesses coming forward meant the lies were starting to run out of chairs. From there, I stopped at Blue Ridge Credit Union. Zinnia Croft printed the access change log with the date Calder's name was removed, and she prepared a letter on official letterhead confirming my sole control. We checked alerts, no new attempts, but she suggested a travel notice as a trap in case someone tried to slip changes through. I added the letter behind the TRO in my binder. Policy is policy. She shrugged when I thanked her for standing firm. The paper doesn't lie if you don't let people write on it. Institutional backbone is just a person doing their job with both feet planted. By midday, the phone rang with a shaky voice. The party guest who'd sat in Calder's living room confessed she couldn't keep quiet. I laughed, too. She admitted. But when they talked about evaluation and signatures, it felt wrong. She agreed to write a statement, signed and dated, noting where she sat and what she heard. Family stops being private when paperwork gets forged. I told her, doing right late is still doing right. Shame is a poor compass. It points to quiet when truth needs a map. At 10:30 sharp, I sat across from Thaddeus in the precinct. I laid out my exhibits, HOA email, Facebook thread, the chair photo, neighbor's details, bank letter, voicemail transcript. He logged each one, flagged pattern of narrative manipulation, and noted possible intimidation if posts escalated. He mentioned forwarding the case to APS or the DA. No promises, good progress. He said, "Slow wheels still roll. Relief isn't joy, it's air you finally remember how to breathe." As I left the precinct, my phone buzzed. Calder, calling from a number I didn't recognize. I answered once. On speaker. "Why are you dragging this into the courts?" he asked. "Mom, people talk." My answer was plain email only. I recited the TRO clause, logged the call, and hung up. A boundary held is a favor to everyone. Love without respect is just nostalgia in a nice frame. Back at my bungalow, I slid the key into the lock. My phone lit again. Thaddeus's message. "We may have something new on the documents. Sit tight, I'll come by. Saturday afternoon." Thaddeus sat at my kitchen table with a folder no thicker than a hymn book. He laid it flat and said, "Forensics traced the so-called POA to a scanned signature from an old insurance claim. Metadata shows intake initiated from a device near Calder's house." The words carried the weight of a gavel. The DA was considering fraud and attempted financial exploitation. Thaddeus reminded me no private contact. Call in if approached. Your witness status protects your perimeter. He added. I signed the acknowledgement, my name steady, and watched as he slipped copies into his bag for Indira. The truth shows up with a badge and a timestamp. Justice, when it's ready, speaks in documents more than in thunder. By mid-afternoon, I pulled up the e-sign platform Indira had set. The listing agreement blinked on my screen. I signed with one deliberate stroke. Photos scheduled, lockbox code texted, spare keys inventoried, receipts stacked like fences around a yard, utilities queued for transfer, mail forwarding set to a P.O. box. I inked the moving date into my planner. No pencil smudges this time. To Alara, I texted a single line with my new address for cookies and homework. Write the plan in pen, not in pencil. Decisions feel lighter when they stop asking for permission later. I carried a certified check to Greenway Women's Shelter. The director read the figure twice, blinking hard. This is immediate, she asked. Yes, I said, no someday clauses. Beds and counseling hours unlocked today. I signed a note for those who leave with nothing but their name. A staffer took a photo for internal records, not for social media. This win wasn't meant for likes. Do the good while you can touch it. Charity is cleanest when it doesn't audition. Walking back through my old block, I heard voices. Two neighbors paused by the sidewalk. We saw the update from the precinct. One said, Thaddeus's press note had reached them no names, just charges considered by the DA. I pulled the folded page from my bag, my 3-line statement ready case number. Court orders, council contact, and plain and short, Calder's Pray For Us post had filled with question marks. The trash chair photo vanished quietly. I added nothing else. Short and plain keeps you out of potholes. Reputation repairs best with silence and a clock. Evening softened as I turned the key at Unit 1B. I pressed marigold seeds into the soil by the stoop, earth warm and forgiving. Inside, I taped Alara's sketch near the window, 2 chess pieces poised to win with less. On the counter sat a single cup, plate, and pen, my life recalibrated to balance. I texted Thaddeus a thank you, Indira a brief, filed and breathing. The apartment hummed steady, like a boat tied to a sure dock. Start small, but start. Peace isn't loud. It's the sound of locks you chose. My phone pinged Indira, forwarding the DA's notice charges filed, arraignment stamped, another ping Zinnia confirming no new breaches. Then Alara bikes on the balcony. Cookies tomorrow, I replied. Bring napkins. Calder's voicemail blinked unanswered. I deleted it without listening. You don't have to answer every knock. Victory isn't the door slamming, it's choosing which one's open. At the sink. I rinsed a mug. Outside, soil shifted. A faint green sprout broke through near the stoop marigolds, keeping their promise.